Hello, this is Broyar, and welcome to yet another, patch impressions for Civilization 6. Most of this is going to be geared towards Gathering Storm, although there are a few things called out here that do affect the base game and the other expansions as well. So, yeah, I mean, let's go ahead and just jump right into it. There's a lot here. This one just doesn't have a fancy, Antarctic summer update name. It's just June 2019 update. So a little bit less, pizzazz on the name itself, but I still think there's a lot of really good content here. I've only kind of skimmed through this a little bit. I did watch the video. I'm not going to go through the video here. I'll let you do that on your own time. But I'm going to go through the patch notes, hopefully fairly quickly because there is a lot here. But we'll see what's going on. Let's jump in. Just to point out, this did come out today, June 18th. So I'm hopefully will be starting a Let's Play with this patch. Basically, as soon as I get done making this video, I will start recording that Let's Play as well. I haven't decided who I'm going to play as yet. But anyway, we'll jump right into it here and see what's going on. It's typical, unless otherwise stated, items below are assumed to be Gathering Storm rule set only. So, first off, we got some World Congress changes here. We got 3 new World Congress proposals. Public relations. Target player generates 100% more grievances, and other players generate 100% more grievances with the target player, or the target player generates 50% fewer grievances, and other players generate 50% fewer grievances towards the target player. It's an interesting kind of balance there. I mean, obviously, one is if you're planning on doing a lot of things that will generate grievances, you would probably prefer to generate fewer grievances. Now, that being said, I do often find that if I'm generating a lot of grievances, it's usually because I'm like going to war with a lot of people. And usually by then, I just don't care if I have the grievances, or at all. Like, okay, you're mad at me. You're next. Don't worry about it. You take your time being mad at me, doing whatever I did. I'll take care of you here in a moment, or whatever. I might have, done to offend you in some way, spying on you or something of that nature. But there could be some benefit here somewhere, I'm sure. Espionage Pact. All spies function 2 levels higher for the target operation, or target operation is unavailable. Ooh, okay, so the 2 levels higher is good benefit, don't get me wrong, but I'm assuming you still cap out at the 90% or whatever it is. So there is still a cap on things. It'll just help you get there quicker without having to wait for your spies to get leveled up completely. The other side of this, though, I do think is a lot more impactful. Target operation is unavailable. When you get into the late game and you're really maybe you're pushing for a diplomatic victory or a culture victory or something like that, or your own science victory, and you want to disrupt maybe some of the other guys' science operations, or maybe you want to steal some of their cultural great works or whatever it is. If that target operation becomes unavailable, you basically have no way of stopping them without maybe going to war and taking things by force. So I think that half of this is definitely more impactful than the extra 2 levels, although the 2 levels is still a really, really cool thing. Military advisory. Target unit promotion class gains +5 combat strength or loses 5 combat strength. Ooh, that's a good one. 5 combat strength doesn't sound like a lot, but when you have that in the mix with all the other kind of bonuses and stuff like that that can really make a pretty significant difference. If you're able to target a specific promotion class that you have a lot of, like maybe cavalry, if you're Mongolia or something like that, then you could really kind of take your advantage and just take it even further than that compared to some of the other people, or obviously losing combat strength if you want to play a more pacifistic game. Or if you got Mongolia right next to you, Scythia right next to you, people like that, yeah, let's just reduce the cavalry a little bit and kind of help things out in that way. So I think that's going to be an interesting one to have pop into the World Congress, and I think that will definitely have some benefit one way or the other. And it might be one that you want to reserve some of your points for, especially if you're planning on going to war, or if you have a nearby neighbor who might be going to war against you. You definitely don't want them to get an extra 5 combat strength. That will hurt things quite a bit. Up next, we have new request type for new request for A type, I should say. Military aid request. If a civ that you have at least 200 grievances with or against declares war on you, a military aid request becomes available. This uses the gifting system gold or project. Okay, so it's just another way to get some more aid of some sort. So that's pretty good. All rule sets on PC. World Builder basic mode is now on by default. They did show a little bit about the world builder, and there's some new polish and bugs, fixes as they mentioned here about the world builder stuff. I haven't really gotten into the world builder myself, but I think there's going to be a lot of people that will take advantage of that quite a lot, and hopefully we see a lot of good maps and things like that out there that we might be able. Maybe we'll play on one of those. We'll see. Unit abilities. Added unit. Oh, this is huge. I love this one. I saw this one in the video. Added unit abilities tooltip to the unit panel. Mouse over a unit portrait to see unit abilities that were previously hidden. Note that this will not include temporary or situational abilities. This is kind of a big deal. It sounds like a small thing, and I have to imagine it was not that hard of a change for them to put in, quite frankly. But and so the fact that it took this long is a little weird, but that's okay. That's okay. This is a big one because it allows you to kind of hover over their icon and see all the different abilities, especially some of those crazy ones like going next to some of the natural wonders to get +5 combat strength in hills, or just +5 combat strength all over the place, or whatever it may be. Being able to see those unit abilities kind of just all in one space, kind of listed out like that, is actually a really, really good change. And like I said, I think it should have been there all along. Diplomacy ribbon yields. Okay, now we have an interface option in settings to turn on all the player yields on the diplomacy ribbon. They are always off, on via mouse over, or always on. This one is big. There's been several mods that have come out that have shown this, and I will definitely show this one in the first game that I play, because I'll have this one turned on, I think, pretty much all the time. But basically, it tells you all the military strength, tells you the science, the culture, all that type of stuff, all the good details that you might see in a UI, like, what was it, the one that was like CQUI, I think was one of the ones, maybe, or something like that. There's several UI mods that obviously now don't need it anymore because it's now part of the base game. Now, there might be some things that those mods still do better than the base game, but having this in the base game really takes it to the next level and really just helps me like be fine with not playing with mods. I don't tend to like to play with mods, but I think they definitely bring a lot of value for things like this, especially if they haven't been in the game. It's good to see this now in the game. Power lens. Add a power lens when on the power tab of a city view with area highlights to easily see what is powered and what is not. I saw this a little bit in I think it was the live stream that they did. I don't know if it shows in the video, but I think it definitely showed it in the live stream that did a week or two ago. And, it's pretty cool. It's good. It just gives you some more information about where the power is, which cities are getting power from which particular, like, things out in the world, or which, factories and things of that nature, or power, I guess not factories, but you know what I mean, the power stations and things like that. And so it helps a little bit kind of manage your power, to some degree. I didn't think I had too much trouble personally managing the power already, but why not? There's no reason not to have this lens in the game. And so I think this is, this is a good add. Body of water labeling. Add map labels to any body of water over a certain size, oceans, bays, lakes, etc. I think this is cool. I love the map labeling. I think it gives more character to the map, and kind of, if you're the first to discover something, it kind of gets named based on, your civilization. So it really kind of, like I said, it just gives a little more depth to the map, and more just kind of realism, I think, to the map, because rivers would be named, lakes would be named, oceans would be named. I think all that stuff is really, really cool, and I'm really looking forward to kind of seeing this again. It's not like a game changing change or anything like that, but it's just a cool change. Balance and polish. So there's some pretty big ones here that I've read through. Civs, England, iron and coal mines accumulate 2 more resources per turn. Okay, that's pretty useful. 100% production towards military engineers. Military engineers receive +2 charges. Buildings that provide additional yields when powered receive +4 of the respective yield. 20% production towards plus 20% production towards industrial zone buildings. Harbor buildings increase strategic resource stockpiles by +10. That's a lot of a mouthful. Needless to say, England is very much more about that industrial kind of might, and then that getting that more production coming out and things of that nature. So all in all, getting more production towards the industrial zone buildings, that's really going to help them build those zones up and get even more production quicker from those things. Military engineers getting more charges. There's a few things that can help with as well, for sure. Buildings that provide additional yields when powered receive +4 of the respective yield. That's a pretty big deal. Being able to make sure we have that power where you want it to get that extra yield. So I think some of these might have been already based. I think this just might be a rewording of their base kind of thing. But all in all, I think England still feels pretty good, pretty strong. Even both flavors of England. I do think this might help a little bit more towards Victoria's side of things, but I think that both sides of England will be benefiting from this, even if you decide to go kind of more of a culture game. There's nothing wrong with having some extra production for that type of thing. Canada, last best west. Add +1 production to tundra hills, snow hills, lumber mills. Okay, specifically the lumber mills on those things, and +1 food to camps in these terrains. So just really kind of giving just more production for things, specifically the lumber mills, obviously in this case. That was one thing that I think they did kind of a big pass on all over the place, is just production they're trying to ramp up production for just all the civilizations, and some of these specific civilizations like Canada here, getting a little bit more lumber from the or a little more production from the lumber mills and a little more food from the camps on those types of terrains. Just really helps their benefits of being in those terrain get even more. So, obviously, these are obvious benefits for them. Chateau's adjacency for each wonder doubles at flight for France. Yeah, this is good. I mean, there's nothing wrong with this. It's maybe helps to bring them a little bit more, in line with the culture thing. I actually thought they were already pretty good at culture personally. But doubling the Chateau adjacency is good. I don't think, now that I understand a little bit more about how powerful rock bands and some of that late game tourism is, I don't think this is hugely game changing or anything like that. I think it's just a nice little, pick me up and kind of gives them a little bit of a buff to help them out with some of their just natural tourism they're going to get from the chateau. So it's a good change, not necessarily a huge change, not necessarily, again, especially compared to some of the late game tourism stuff. World Congress increased diplomatic victory requirements to 25 diplomatic victory points and increase ability to gain DVP, I guess, in game. So it used to be 10, so now it's 25. I thought they were only going to do 20. I guess they decided through balancing that 25 was a better sweet spot. So it basically, it sounds like it more than doubles the, diplomatic victory, target you need. It makes the game longer, but they're adding a lot more ways to get DVP in this case. Through, wonders, as you can see here, Statue of Liberty gives, double the DVP. Potala Palace gives on DVP. I don't think it gave one before. Mahabodhi Temple gives 2. I don't think it gave any before. Things like that. And then some of the emergencies and things like that are going to give, more diplomatic victory points as you progress. So I don't think they expect the game to necessarily take longer. I think there's just more ways to get to that victory, which just gives you more variety in how you play to kind of go for a diplomatic victory in the end, which is pretty cool. Change current DVP resolution to +2 or -3 DVP for the target player. I think it used to be just +1 or +2 before, but now it's either +2 or -3, or I think it was +2 and -1 or something like that. Either way, the negative side of this definitely got a big, I don't know, buff, if that's, I guess, the right word. So you could really take it to somebody or stick it to somebody if they're getting a little bit farther advanced in the diplomatic victory side of things, hitting them with that -3, in the grand scheme of things, needing 25, maybe doesn't hurt as much, but it still hurts. That's a 5-point swing right there between +2 or -3. That's a 5-point swing, which is just a pretty big deal. So I think this is a good change, good thing to see. Let's see here. What else we got here? Buffing starting DVP for existing saves and late starts. Saves from the wild should now double their DVP upon load. Okay, so this is just people that were loading into this patch with an existing save. I guess in theory, it'll double whatever the DVP they had presently, and then allow them to kind of pick up from there and hopefully not be too far behind. So hopefully they can kind of continue their saves, which is good, I guess. Advanced starts now have a more reasonable number of starting DVP. Okay, that's fair. I mean, again, this is all just to kind of help balance out the diplomatic victory points here. Scored competitions now end 1 turn before World Congress meets again to lower the noise threshold by all of it happening on the same turn. Not a game-breaking change or anything like that, but it's just a quality of life change, and I think I like that. Update to vote tie-breaking for World Congress. Now, instead of awarding the win by player ID, once all other values are calculated, determine it based on player with the least remaining favor. I kind of actually thought this was already how it was working. I hadn't really dug too far into kind of the ties and how the tiebreakers worked, but I thought it had something to do with whatever, like who had the least left over, which means that they were probably the person spending the larger percentage of their points. But I guess that's not how it was working. So there you go. Send aid project now sends go to all accepting ongoing emergencies. Send aid project now sends go to all accepting ongoing emergencies. Okay. I guess, was it not sending gold before? I guess I hadn't really paid attention to the emergencies, or I don't know if I've been a recipient of an emergency before, but I guess it wasn't actually sending the gold, but now it's sent. I'm not sure if I completely understand this one. We'll probably have to see it in game to kind of really understand what that's actually doing. Eras, add light scaling to era score by game speed. So I think the argument that they had was, and I've said this before in some of my videos, that the slower game speeds definitely benefit like a military-minded player because the map size doesn't change. If you're going on quick speed, with, whatever, 110 turns or 150 turns or whatever it is, I can't remember exactly, versus like marathon speed, 1500 turns, something like that. But it still takes you, 10 moves to get your, unit from one side of the continent to the other. Well, might have been some more benefit or some more ability for players on those slower speeds to get more era score from like barbarians and other things like that, other kind of military related things, which meant that they're almost always guaranteed to get those golden age in some ways. You could kind of make it maybe force it a little bit more frequently. So I think this way they're trying to make it scale a little bit more. So that if the slower speeds, you might need a little bit more era score to get there than maybe you did already, to account for some of that. So we'll see how that works once when you get into game. Although most of the games I play these days are on standard speed, so I don't know if we'll see much difference. That's probably like right down the middle. So we may not see that. But if you play on one of the slower speeds or even one of the faster speeds, you might see a different variance there. Dedications for later eras. Sky and Stars Golden Age is updated. Unlocks the Eurekas for satellites, nuclear fusion, and nanotechnology in the information area. Okay, we've seen that one before, I think, right? When chosen in the future area, the Eurekas for smart materials, predictive systems, and off-world missions are unlocked. Okay, that might have been new. I don't know if although I may just not have seen this one in that era. 100% XP earned for all air units. Aluminum mines accumulate +2 more resource per turn. Okay. I think we've seen the air unit XP. I don't know if we've seen the aluminum thing or not. That might be new. And I think this future one might be new, but the other one we've seen before for sure. I cannot say that word for some reason. I apologize. Automaton, is that how you say that? Warfare Golden Age. This is cool. I like this one a lot. Gain a giant death robot. Receive 3 uranium per turn. Uranium mines accumulate +1 more resource per turn. So if you take this in a Golden Age, you get a giant death robot for free, which a giant death robot is hugely game changing, especially if you're the first one to get one. They can kill basically every unit else in the game. They're incredibly strong. And plus this one gives you the uranium you need to support that unit. Now, obviously, once the Golden Age goes away, you get to keep the Death Robot, but you will lose the extra uranium per turn. So you'll have to make sure you find a way to pay for that, or else it'll have a little bit of a reduction there. And then the normal and Dark Age version of that gain 1 era score for each non-barbarian unit killed with a GDR. Okay, well that's fine. I mean, there's definitely, once you start getting GDRs, you're going to be killing some units with them. So I could see how that could be a benefit for sure. New Dark Age policies for later eras. Cyber warfare. +10 combat strength against units from the information in future eras. But grievances against you do not decay. I think I'd be okay with that, honestly. Again, if you're into the mode of I'm going to war with the world, who cares about grievances at that point, honestly, in some ways. I know it still affects you, but in some way it's just like, really, I don't care. You hate me, everybody hates me, everybody's got grievances against me. Oh well, if they don't decay. Give me the extra combat strength. I think this is a really cool Dark Age policy for sure. Automated workforce. Your cities get 20% increased production towards city projects, but -1 amenity and -5 loyalty per turn in your cities. I mean, the 20% production towards city projects will help you towards like a science victory, or honestly, any of the victories could benefit from this in some way, for sure. Losing the amenity and the 5 loyalty per turn in your cities can hurt a little bit, but I think you could counteract those pretty easily as well. I mean, if you're in a pretty safe area, losing the extra 5 loyalty on top of whatever you're already losing, probably not that big of a deal. The amenity, again, if you're small enough, maybe you have enough amenities already. So that could be a useful one to bring in, depending on what you're trying to go for. And this is for later eras anyway. So usually, most likely, the city project you're going for is space victory type stuff. Disinformation campaign. +3 favor per turn for each broadcast center, but -10% science and culture in all cities. Okay. So if you want to go for a diplomatic victory, you don't really care as much about the science. You don't really care as much about the culture, although there are diplomatic victory points to be gained from, I think, both science and culture. I know for culture for sure. I think there might be at least one in science. So you are missing out on that a little bit, but getting the extra 3 favor will help you in the World Congress stuff to maybe kind of get those votes to go your way. So I could see how this could be an interesting one to pick up. Great people. Great works of writing are now +2 culture and +2 tourism, which I think this is a nerf. I think it was 4 and 4 or something like that. I don't remember exactly, but I think they said this was definitely a nerf to try and bring the great works of writing. They felt like it was too strong in the early game. Once you started getting some great works of writing into your early cities, you were just getting too much culture and too much tourism. So I definitely think this was a bit of a nerf. If a player cannot earn a great person of a class, for example, a great prophet after they already have one or after they run out, great people points are converted into faith at a 1-to-1 ratio. Oh, I really like this change a lot. Great person points from the Holy Site Prayers project and other city projects now count as excess points and generate faith if no GP of that type can be earned. I like this a lot because all the time you're getting like sure, getting that shrine or that temple or whatever, even other buildings, cultural buildings or things like that, that might be good to get some faith, for example, for the temples and stuff. But you're missing out on like half of the purpose of that entire building. Now that we know that comes into extra faith, if you didn't get a religion or something like that, or if it's already just all the religions are already claimed, it still makes those buildings even more worthwhile to build, which I think is a really cool deal. I like this a lot. Actually, I think this is a really cool deal. Map gen, new maps, 7 seas, small continents. Ooh, that sounds like a fun one. Small continents. Both of those actually sound like some pretty cool maps. We'll have to check those out sometime. Generation, decrease the number of one-tile mountains on XP2 Archipelago maps by about 15%. Okay. I'm not familiar with that map, so I guess we'll just have to take that for what it says. Generate more woods on tundra, which obviously will help Canada, which is good. Allow coal to be on woods and aluminum to be on rainforest. Interesting. Okay, that's going to be an interesting change. Not a huge, game-changing change, but will definitely be interesting to see. Maybe it'll just give you more places that coal could be, so maybe it gives you a higher chance of having coal. Whereas maybe before, because of restrictions, okay, you have woods or rainforest, or for the aluminum as well, sorry. Maybe you were reducing the amount of those of chances that you had for either coal or aluminum, respectively. So this could be useful. I'm assuming you would then have to chop down the woods or the rainforest to get access to that coal. That's my assumption. That seems like that would make sense. Building improvements tied to the tech tree rebalance. Building production cost balancing. Decreasing costs of later game buildings and their Civ unique variants by roughly 20%. By roughly 20%? Going from 225 to 220 is not 20%. These must be some bad examples, I guess. Because that's like 5 points. Whoop-de-doo. Here we go. I guess factories and stuff, 3090 to 330. Okay, that's a bigger deal for sure. The zoo stuff, the hangar. Yeah, all of these things. There's a lot of buildings things that are now cheaper to make, which is good. I mean, if they're going to increase the production and then decrease the production cost of buildings late in the game, then, or at least maybe not increase the production, but increase the production abilities, like things that you can gain from production. Here we go. Yeah, here's some of the production you can gain. Extra Workshop now does 3 production instead of 2. Army is 3 production instead of 2. Military Academy is 4 instead of 3. So there's more ways to get production from different things, and then making some of the late game buildings cheaper. Those combine to just be easier to get some of those late game buildings. I guess is the net result there. Buffing the yields and amenities of certain mid and late game buildings to make them more worth the production cost investment, adding small power requirements to some buildings as well. So, okay, again, they're trying to make a lot of these more worthwhile. It was 2 and 5, for example, for factory. Now it's 3 and 6. Ferris wheel was none. Now it's 3 culture. Okay, that's obviously a good change. Et cetera, et cetera. I mean, you can read through some of these, but there's some good changes here, I think. Some of these do require power, obviously, and you get even stronger with power, which is good. Because if you're going to have power anyway, I am okay with them adding more power needs to some of these other buildings to make them even better. But yeah, there's some good changes here. Tier 3 buildings and districts that can support worker citizens specialists now increase the yields for each citizen working that in the district. So all the different plants get +1 production per citizen. Stock exchange gets +2 gold per citizen, etc., etc. So obviously this will make it more worthwhile to have specialists than it was before. So as you get bigger and taller cities, working some of these, focused locations and then putting some citizens in these buildings, like you used to, like back in old Civ days, it was a much bigger deal to really balance those specialists in different places to really take advantage of all the different increases they could get. It felt like we kind of gotten away from that a little bit, and I think this is a good way to kind of make sure that we get back to that especially if you're going to min-max a lot, to really, hey, I want to focus down on production. Well, maybe it's more worthwhile to put somebody into the power plant than it is to have them working a tile. So that's good. All rule sets, changing the yields of citizens working district tile specialists, again, to better fit the balance of and flavor of certain districts. So, okay, so this one's Gathering Storm only. This stuff is for all rule sets. So, okay. Again, similar to this, just some balance changes here. Change industrial zone adjacency bonus. +1 production for every 2 adjacent districts, +1 production for every 2 adjacent lumber mills, +1 for every 2 adjacent mines. I think the lumber mills is the new part here, right? Because I don't think the lumber mills used to be here. It was just the mines, if I'm remembering correctly. Then +1 production for the strategic resource, government plaza, and quarries. That's a standard adjacency. And then +2 production for aqueducts, canals, dams, and bath districts. So again, just lots more ways to get a lot more adjacency bonuses for your industrial zone. All of these, again, adding up to just more production for your cities. Increase values of quarries, pastures, and lumber mills to have similar output to mines, which are dominant right now. So instead of nerfing mines, which it looks like they're not doing, I don't see anything like that, they're bringing everything up. I like that. That's always good to buff other things instead of nerfing something that's doing really good. So lumber mills unlocked with construction, classical, +2 production, +1 production from steel, +1 production from cybernetics in the future. So that's up to +4 production right there from your lumber mill. That's pretty good. Also allowing lumber mills on rainforest tiles. This is a big one because before this, what did you use your rainforest tiles for? Like maybe a little bit of, if you decided to go for, what was it, the zoo? Or was it zoo? It is zoo, right? That gives you science and rainforest tiles or something like that. Anyway, some of those types of late game bonuses, things like that. Sure, you might have left your rainforest there, but most often for me at least, I would leave the lumber mills sometimes, on the lumber yards and stuff like that, if it felt like it was an okay tile to leave it on. But I was almost always chop my rainforest because whatever. I mean, they're not really used for anything else unless they have some sort of bonus resource there. This is going to allow you to put lumber mills on the rainforest tiles, and they've already got a buff on lumber mills, so this is going to make those rainforest tiles just that much better. So I think it's going to be good to keep them around even longer. It does remove the river adjacency, which honestly, I didn't even realize existed until very recently as I was reading through doing some research and reading through the Civilopedia. I was like, oh, there's a river adjacency? It's not something that like just comes up automatically very often. And so I'm okay with them removing this and buffing it in other ways because, in a way, it kind of might have gotten a little confusing. Pasture unlocked with animal husbandry, +1 production and 0.5 housing, +1 food from exploration, +1 production from replaceable parts, +1 food from robotics. I don't remember what this was before, but if it says it's a buff, I'll take it. Both the pasture and the quarry here looks like they got some increases. I'd have to do some side-by-side comparisons to what they were before to remember exactly what the increase is. But either way, increases on pastures, increases on quarries, increases on lumber mills, bring them all more in line, getting just more production and stuff like that. It's going to be good. Miscellaneous. Hansa, add 2 production for aqueducts, canals, and dams. Okay. That is just the German equivalent of, where is it? Of the industrial zone. So that's fine. I mean, that's there's nothing there. That's just a porting over the tooltip basically to make sure that it also counts for the Hansa. Religion pantheon. Remove goddess of the harvest. Okay, that could be a big one for some people. I think a lot of people actually like the goddess of the harvest a lot. But add goddess of fire, which gives +2 faith for every volcanic soil and geothermal tile. It could come in handy. I mean, there's been a few places where you could come right next to either a lot of geothermals, which I've had a couple games with that, or a lot of volcanic soil. Getting a little extra faith gives you some more variety there. Divine Spark, +1 great person points from holy sites. Campuses with a library. Theater squares with an amphitheater. Before, just great scientists and great writer facet didn't require buildings. Oh, okay. I see how it is. So you get the great person point from the holy site just by itself, just the holy site in and of itself. But the scientists and writers both need either a campus or need the library and the amphitheater respectively, which I'm okay with this change. You still get the extra great person points. You still get the divine spark. It's just delayed a little bit to make sure that you get that library or that amphitheater down, which it's going to slow it down a little bit, but I think I'm okay with this. It's still, I think, a pretty good bonus to pick up. Craftsmen, +1 production and +1 faith from improved strategic resources. Before, just 1 production on mine improvements. Okay, so any improved strategic resources, which I guess the ones it includes would be oil and horses. I think those are the only 2 that weren't normally mined before now, right? There might be some others. I think there's only 2 though. You now get +1 production on those as well as faith. So I actually like this change a lot. I think this is a good change. All strategic resources basically are good for you. Earth Goddess, +2 faith from tiles with breathtaking appeal. Before, +1 faith from tiles with charming or better appeal. Okay, so you need a higher appeal level, but if you get to a higher appeal level, you get more faith from those tiles. Okay, I mean, it may balance out a little bit, or maybe for some of those civilizations, they're able to bump up the appeal a little bit more with certain things. This might benefit them more because they're able to get to that breathtaking level, quicker and better. So this is an interesting change. I think it's fairly balanced, but I think it's a good change because just getting more faith for those breathtaking ones. I think you could find a way to make that, maximize that, and get even more from that than you could have gotten before. I say that, maybe not. I mean, that's a lot of charming is a lot easier to get than breathtaking, to be fair. I don't know. We'll have to see how that plays out in game. Goddess of the Hunt. +1 food and +1 production from camps. Before it was just +1 food. Again, the whole idea, more production. Remove oral tradition. Goddess of the festivals. +1 culture from plantation. Okay, so the oral tradition, wasn't that the one that was like a companion with, was it the festivals? Was that the other one too? That one was like citrus and silk and spices, and the other one was, you know, incense and all this. And you're like, okay, which one was which? I forget, you know, and you're like, I don't remember if this is the luxury resource that got me this one or that one. And you have to go back to the map and look. It was, I frustrated me, to be honest. Combining all those and just saying plantations, +1 culture, done. Oh yeah, here we go. In fact, it says right here, Goddess of the Festival was +1 food to half of the plantation types, and oral tradition was the other half of the plantation improvements. It was +1 culture. Now it's just +1 culture from all plantations. I think this is a good change because it was a bit confusing before, to be perfectly honest. Religious settlements. When chosen and you have at least one city, receive a settler in your capital. Border expansion rate is 15% faster. Oh, wow. I like this one a lot. I mean, the 15% border growth was, yeah, I mean, it's good, I guess, to have your borders expand a little bit more, but it's not one that I was like, yeah, I feel really like I need to go pick this one up. Getting a free settler, though, suddenly that changes things a lot, because you get this so early in the game, that free settler can really make a big difference, compound itself into, you know, that second city or that third city that you put out, and really, that's a pretty big change. I like this change a lot. I think this is a good one. Fertility rights. When chosen, you have at least one city, receive a builder in your capital. I like the fact that it says when you have at least one city, because when would you not have a city? Anyway, that's a weird tooltip. City growth rate is 10% higher. Okay, so the 10% growth rate, I personally thought was a little bit more beneficial than the expansion rate. So I am actually kind of glad they stuck the builder with the growth rate and the settler with the expansion rate. But yeah, the builder, getting a free builder, again, very, very strong. You know, builder's a couple hundred production right there that you're going to be saving yourself just from picking this up. So if some of the other things just don't jump out at you, I think this is just a free way to just get a quick and early builder, get that rolling, get some of those early benefits from that. I like this a lot. This is a good one. River Goddess, +2 amenities and +2 housing to cities if they have a holy site district adjacent to a river. Before it was just +1 amenity. Okay. Well, obviously going from +1 amenity to 2 amenity and 2 housing is a big, or unless it was just +1 amenity and 2 housing. That might be the case. Either way, it's a buff. I'm happy. It's good. When a barbarian outpost is cleared, receive +50 faith, and the unit that cleared the barbarian outpost heals 100 HP. Before it was just the 50 faith. Okay, so now getting a free heal from that, I mean, I don't usually take this one personally, but I can see, you know, where if this is one that you care about, this is one that you like a lot, getting a free heal out of it just helps you kind of continue to go hunting for those barbarian outposts more readily without having to wait for healing up. Technologies and civics. Rebalance Antananarivo. I'm sure I'm saying that wrong. Balance this place bonuses to have a maximum bonus of +30% culture. Before it was no limit. Okay, I mean, limiting something that was not limited before usually is in the best interest of game balance. And so I think even though it is a nerf, I think it's always going to be ultimately in the best interest of balance. And I think I'm okay with this change. This is fine. Additional tech prerequisites. Stirrups require apprenticeship. Chemistry requires replaceable parts. So that's just going to kind of maybe clean up the tech tree a little bit and kind of change some of the paths there. Tech cost increases. Early Renaissance went up by about a little bit more than 10%. This one went up about 70 points, so a little bit more than 10%. So all of these went up by a decent chunk for all of the techs. So that is definitely going to slow down how quickly you get through the techs, as well as civics, as you can see here. Civic techs increases. This one is, where these ones are a little bit more than 10%. These are a little bit closer to right at, actually almost a little bit less than 10% in some cases. Actually, some of these are a little bit more. So either way, techs increases, civics increases, ultimately slows down the game a bit in that regard, or maybe just requires that you have more, you know, tech on your side, more civic or culture, you know, generation in your cities to get, you know, basically back at the pace that you might have been before this patch. All in all, like I said before with some of this other stuff up here, this is to help balance the game out and things like that. And I'm actually okay with slowing the game down a little bit more because, you know, I like being in some of the areas and taking advantage of some of the things that are in the areas and not just especially when you play on daily difficulty or any of the higher difficulties, and the AI is the one's going to be taking advantage of, the lower tech costs a lot more than you are, at least initially. And so maybe now, instead of, them being in atomic while you're in Renaissance, maybe now they'll only be in modern and you're in Renaissance or something like that. So I think this is okay. This is okay. Units, increased anti-air strength of naval units to be on par with increases made on land AA units. Okay, just balance change, no big deal. Several strategic resources required unit changes. Oh, that's right. Okay, so these four changed from niter to horses, and I think this was to balance out the fact that there was a lot that had needs for niter. Oh, sorry, this one went from niter to iron, and these three went from niter to horse. But anyway, there was a lot that needed niter, and so I think they felt like there was just not enough that needed horses, not enough that needed iron, and so balancing those needs out a little bit. Ultimately, they function the same way in the end. But I think this is fine. This is a good change, and this makes sense. Nuclear submarine no longer requires uranium per turn. Really? Okay. I mean, that's nice, I guess. I mean, it's not a huge thing, but it's going to be cool. Reduced it's going to make it easier for you to get some of those GDRs, I suppose. Reduced upfront resource cost of remaining unique units from 20 to 10. Oh, okay. This is good. Okay. I'm okay with this. I think some of the upfront resource costs for unique units was really, really high, and quite frankly made it where they just weren't, like, it was like, really, is this really that much more beneficial than me just going with the vanilla thing? Especially like the Legion. The Legion was really not that much stronger than just a baseline, I think, swordsman or whatever. But it's like, it cost 20, and it's like, I mean, I had said before, I think with one of my reviews of Rome, or one of the discussions I had about Rome, that I felt like the upfront resource cost was just, you should get a benefit. I mean, you should be able to, this is my unique unit. It should not cost me as much to have these. I should be able to have a lot more of these. And so this is going to help you towards that, for a lot of these resources and things like that. For a lot of these unique units, I should say. All rule sets on PC cores and Army Gold purchase costs now taken into account the 25% production discount awarded by building the military academy. Upfront resource costs also consider the 25% discount. Oh, wow. That's a good change. Making those a little bit cheaper if you've got taking the time to build the military academy might make it more beneficial to build that military academy if you hadn't done that before. All rule sets increases the movement range of some late game units from 2 to 3. Modern AT, modern SAM, and rocket artillery. Just more movement. I'm okay with that. Military engineers can contribute production to flood barriers and aqueducts. I like this a lot. I think this is a very good change. I think this makes sense. Those are both very kind of, even though it's a military engineer, so it sounds a little kind of counterintuitive in some ways. I think, flood barriers and aqueducts, these are very, similar to dams and even, I guess, the fact that they can do railroads. I mean, I guess you could think of it as like the military corps of engineers, like, a lot of times in the United States, they have gone through and like they've helped build a lot of these types of things like dams and barriers of some sort, things like flood barriers and things like that. So I think this is logical, and I think this makes sense, and I think this means that you will probably have more military engineers, because there's a lot of times I would love to get flood barriers out before the floods start coming in and taking my tiles, or, just a lot of times you will have aqueducts in a lot of your cities. Having a military engineer that can come out and rush that, I like it. It's good. I'll have to check the production cost of the military engineers versus the production saved, especially on the aqueducts, because aqueducts are, probably usually pretty cheap, but the flood barriers, at least, I think is a really good change for sure. Update battering rams and siege towers to only work with melee and anti-cavalry units. Medieval and Renaissance walls, I'm reading this next one because it's sort of relevant. Medieval and Renaissance walls are immune to battering rams. Renaissance walls are immune to siege towers. Battering rams upgrade into siege towers. Okay, so all of this to say that they're trying to change kind of how battering rams and siege towers work, make them still good for what they do, but not something that you can just use all the time, all over the place, whenever you want to. There is a limit, and it's a logical limit. I mean, if you get into the Renaissance, that kind of era, I mean, a battering ram does start to kind of lose a little bit of its like logical kind of thing there. I mean, you're dealing with cannons on one side and battering rams on the other. It's like, okay, I've got a field cannon over here, or whatever. I guess that's more, is that Renaissance or anyway? But you know what I mean. My point is, you're dealing with like firepower and things like that. And battering rams, not saying that they couldn't have done some damage to Renaissance walls, but I get the logical thing here. At some point, these things need to start kind of dying off a little bit. So I'm okay with this progression here. Only working with melee and anti-cavalry units, though. That does mean that you can't stack them with, well, it's not that they worked with archers. I wonder if that means you could still stack them and it just will only give the benefit to the melee and anti-cavalry. I'm sure that's what it means. As long as the battering ram or siege tower is nearby, even if it's stacked with a different type of unit, it should still just benefit those types of units, the melee and anti-cavalry. But it does mean that the cavalry units don't get a benefit from this. And presumably, maybe ships were getting a benefit before. I don't know if I had seen that. Maybe it was happening before. Whew, man, we've been going for 40 minutes. This is a very long video. I'm not going to go through everything left, but I'll go through, try and skim through some of these rest of these things here. Policy, music censorship. Rock bands from other players may not enter your territory, but -1 amenity in all your cities with 10 or more population. This is a great, great, great policy right here. This is amazing because I just finished my game as Sweden, and rock bands, I didn't realize how strong rock bands were until I really got to see them in action. They are ridiculously strong. And this doesn't necessarily take away their strength in the... If you're allowing them to come into your territory, obviously their strength still exists. It's still there. But you are preventing them from entering your territory. It's a big deal. That's going to allow you to... There are still ways for rock bands to get certain promotions that it can spill over their tourism into neighboring civilizations. But this, not making it where they cannot enter your territory will really help you clamp down on especially some of those AI rushes of rock bands and some of those culture victory pushes that they have. It really puts a little bit of it helps. Big time helps to this. This is a really good change. I like this a lot. And I kind of wish I had this in the last game, although in the end it worked out. So it was very close though. Those rock bands, man, those are strong. UI. I'm going to try and skim through this real quick to see if I can pick out some of the ones that are really good. The gossip and combat status UI. This is a big one. This is one that you've seen a lot of mods do, where it basically just takes those gossip messages that just kind of pop up in the middle of your screen and you can't see anything past them, and it moves them into a more logical state on the right-hand side, it looks like, and reduces them a little bit and makes it just easier to deal with. So that's a good one. Also a gossip reports menu, so that way you can go back through and see any of the ones that you missed. That is awesome. Toggle for drag and drop functionality. Really? I'm not sure. I guess drag and drop units and stuff. I might have to turn that on and try that out. See how that feels. It's interesting. I mean, it's definitely very much not what I would normally play with Civilization, but I mean, going back, all the old civilizations, that drag and drop idea is definitely kind of a new thing. But because I'm so used to using either the arrow keys or the numpad or whatever you want to use to hitting the M key and selecting your tile. But I think this would be helpful for people playing on some sort of touchscreen or something like that, so it's cool. Add mini-map preview to save so you can see what your game looks like before loading. That's cool. I like that. Hotkey text fields in the options menu now have tooltips on each item. Okay. Still, I mean, these are all just good benefits here. City recommendations UI. Oh, this is a good one. Now, does it mean that the city recommendation advisor is still going to show you the absolute possible best place for your city? Probably not necessarily. You probably still want to use some of your own, intelligence about the game to decide if that location that they picked is good or not. But what this does do is it tells you why the advisor chose that area, and it tells you kind of some of the thumbs up, thumbs down type of benefits of it's too close to one of your other cities, or it's too far from your cities, or it's near a natural wonder, or that's a benefit, or it's your first city near the coast, or something like that. Like, it gives you all these different benefits, and it tells you some more reasons why it chose that, and it might actually influence you to say, oh, you know what, that is actually a pretty good place to put a city. So I think this is a good change. Again, maybe more advanced players won't use this all the time, but there might be a few times that it comes in handy and you still use it. And I think definitely new players, this will help them out a lot. World Congress, adding notification for when the player earns DVP. Okay, that's going to be helpful. Implementing previous results for resolutions in the World Congress. Okay, gives the player an idea of how everyone voted the last time the resolution was up for a vote. That's helpful. Again, quality of life. Production queue. Add user interface option to always open to the production queue even if the queue is empty. Open directly to the production queue if a city has any items currently queued. So this is a way for you to kind of put the production queue more in front of you if that's something that you want to use and take advantage of. And I haven't really personally taken a lot of advantage of the production queue. I need to because I think there's a lot of benefit, and it takes away a lot of that micromanagement that you have. you know, you should be able to know at least a couple things of, I want to build this, this, and this, you know, type of thing. But you know, we'll see. We'll see how that, I'm not sure if I'll turn that one on or not. We'll see. Religion, new Pantheon chooser. Left side of screen instead of center of screen. Now the player can see the map when choosing what Pantheon will apply to the SIP. That's obviously good. I mean, the map definitely plays into your Pantheons quite a bit. Religion screen style update design to show more data and waste less space. I'm all for wasting less space on the UI. Miscellaneous here. Floating text for power plants. When a turn ends, will now show. Sorry, I can't talk. Will now only show the amount of power that is actually used rather than the total amount it generates for the resources. Okay, that's fine. Added espionage message to the Civilopedia. Good stuff. Adding more things to the Civilopedia. I think there's a lot of things like that here. Anything else here that really jumps out at me? Change Guitarja colors to not conflict with Coupe. Yeah, no, that's good. They were very, very, very similar, so I'm okay with that. Policy panels has wider cards to avoid text overflow. Allows GDR to be nameable. That's cool. Okay, those are all good. AI. Whew, man. Okay, I'm going to skip the modding for sure. There's a lot of probably really good modding stuff. And so if you want to see that, I mean, you can definitely pause the screen here, and I'll scroll down here in a second if you want to read through that, or obviously go to the webpage yourself and read some of these. But I don't personally do any modding. So here's the second part of this if you want to pause it. But, you know, it's good to see them to continue to, you know, show love to the modders and stuff like that. But AI, obviously everybody always complains about the AI in Civilization. I can only imagine how hard it is to have a really, really strong AI in a game like this. Argument could be said there's a lot of other games that have really good AIs that are similar to Civilization. So I think any AI improvements are almost always going to be a good thing. And it's good to see these types of things. So Civs gives Matthias additional alliance favoritism to support the Hussar unit. Okay. So that's going to help, I guess, the AI, you know, be able to benefit from his Hussar a lot more. Correct issue in Eleanor's alliance favoritism. Okay. Allow Kupi to settle further from his own city to stop him from getting island locked. Sounds like a very good thing to have. John Curtin now favors liberating cities. That is obviously a very good thing since it's a very big bonus of his. World Congress AI support added for new resolutions. Makes sense. AI aid requests. AI now offers aid every 10 turns at 3 times previous value. This won't change existing saves running emergencies. I'm not sure that I've seen this or experienced this, so I'll have to see this, you know, sometime when we're under an emergency to see kind of what this type of impact this has. Improve AI vote prioritization, looking at all resolutions available in a given World Congress. Good stuff. So again, more AI stuff to help out with just different resolutions, things like that. I think these are all good. Combat operations, Korean Hwacha, remove siege designations from units so the AI uses them properly. Oh, really? Okay. Well, that's obviously a good thing to have because we want the AI to use their units the right way. Improvements to city defense tree when trying to get units into defensive positions. Okay. That's good. Obviously, that was one of the weaknesses of the AI is they're not very good at being defensible. That's really the biggest weakness, the big equalizer for the AI in Civilization 6, because they get cheats in technology, they get cheats in culture, they get cheats in production, they get cheats everywhere else. Small cheat in military because they do technically get a little bit of a combat boost, but their actual movement of units and how they build units and things like that is the great equalizer. And that's where the human player, especially on the higher difficulties, is able to come back and really ultimately overpower the AI and just do whatever they want with them. So continuing to see more ways to get improvements in the way the AI treats their units, uses their units, things like that is always that's going to be what makes this game more challenging, because obviously the production bonuses are probably not going anywhere anytime soon. So if the AI's military units get smarter, that's where your challenges are going to come from. So it looks like there are a few changes here to things like that that's going to help the AI a little bit in the combat operations. So we'll see. We'll see how much of a difference it makes. Trade. Use correct stockpile limits when deciding how much of a resource to trade. AI could have offered 0 if they were over the stockpile unit limit, even if the person they're trading to was not. Interesting. I'm not sure that I've seen that, but it's always good to see fixes like that. Anything else here that I really care about? Don't count both sides of the deal against the amount. This was causing deal amounts to go negative in some situations. Interesting. Don't let AI try to trade resources that would take either side beyond their stockpile caps. Okay, that's smart, obviously. And then miscellaneous. Inner ring and total yield scoring changed to use all yields. Previously only food production and food. This makes the AI a bit more aggressive and expand more quickly. Ooh, that's interesting. Unit combat analyzers only check for hostile major powers. Make oligarchy less favored when not at war with majors. That makes sense. Why take oligarchy if you're not really at war with somebody that's not a major power? Don't send non-combat great people to scout the civilization they are at war with during gameplay. They're gonna have a bad time. I mean, don't get me wrong. All that happens, I think, to the great people is that they just get sent back to your capital, right? They don't die like in previous civilizations. So, in a way, I actually thought the scouting with great people was kind of a smart idea in some ways. But no, this is funny that they get rid of that. Again, there's some modding stuff, performance. There's some bug fixes. Anything here? Change Royal Navy Dockyard to apply the +1 naval unit movement bonus as an ability so that it carries through when upgrading. That's obviously a good change there. I didn't realize it was a bug, but that's good that movement will continue all the way up through upgrades. Environmentalist agenda modifiers were reversed. This is now corrected. Sounds like a Gandhi, like why he's nuclear crazy type of thing. We made them less environmental instead of more environmental or something like that. That's kind of funny. Aircrafts now use their standard movement range instead of embarked movement. Obviously, that's a good thing. Add a very simple concept of parent-child relationship to the app side unit system. This is to fix the ugly look of an aircraft carrier moving with air units as cargo. Okay. Fixed a bug preventing aircraft from deploying if based in an airstrip. Interesting. We'll have to see how that plays out. Apparently the Hungarian Hussar was not correctly requiring horses for production. Okay. I'm glad it is now. Remove class melee attack from GDR. It was incorrectly giving the GDR a bonus versus anti-cavalry units. Okay. Well, that's good to know. It's already strong enough. It definitely doesn't need an extra bonus against anti-cavalry. I think a lot of these other bug fixes, I mean, they're going to come into play here and there. I don't see anything that's jumping out at me that's like huge necessarily. Are checked for units that need to be displaced from a submerged tile. Okay, the submerged tile thing is definitely something that, you're going to see, as those tiles get submerged, you want to make sure that things behave properly with those tiles. So, makes sense. I don't really see anything else that's jumping out at me. Some fixes to prevent players with negative score from gaining rewards in scored competitions. That's kind of funny. It's obviously good to have that fixed. Governor Liang's reinforced materials promotion that also prevents damage to city HP and walls HP from natural disasters. Okay, so again, a good positive to have. Change the rules for which power plant resources are used first. Uranium, as the most power efficient resource, 16 power per unit, will now always be used before oil and coal if it is available. Good to know. When playing the death scenario and hot seat, okay, that's just scenario stuff. Map search. Slow down the map search to do at most 35 tiles per frame instead of 128. Fair enough. Guess that's to fix people with maybe weaker systems, stuff like that. That's always, it's always good to have fixes for people that are on lower end hardware. Civilization should be a game that can be played on relatively low hardware. Now, obviously, once you get to the high, like huge maps with, maximum, civilizations and stuff like that, it does take a long time to crunch through the in-between turns, but that doesn't mean like on even a smaller map, somebody shouldn't be able to play with a lower end hardware. I think this is good. Especially not because of the search. The search should not be the reason that hurts your hardware. All right, nothing else here that I'm really seeing that's jumping out at me that's, huge game changing. Some crash fixes. Exploit. Fix a trading issue that would allow you to give a gift of negative resources to an AI, essentially giving a gift that grants their stuff back to you. What? I did not know that was a thing that could happen. That's kind of funny. It's obviously a great fix. But wow, that's funny. Hey, fix the Panama Canal movie now, not going through the time of day cycle. That is obviously a hugely important thing. But seriously, if all the other wonders go through that, it would probably be very glaring that the Panama Canal did not. Anyway, 54 minutes into this video. What an incredibly long video, but there's a lot of changes in here. I might have belabored the point a little bit on a few of them, so I apologize for that. I will try to make sure I put a big old fat warning on the beginning of the video that says big, boring, long discussion. But please let me know what you think in the comments below about some of the changes. Do you think this is a good patch? Do you like the changes in the patch? There's definitely some changes to production. There's changes to the UI, the changes to all sorts of different things. So let me know which change, maybe you like the most, which change you like the least. And what you think about the overall condition of the game. Do you think this it's getting better or whatnot? The only negative I have about this patch is the very boring name, the June 2018 update, considering the last one was the Antarctic summer or midsummer update or whatever like that. So that was kind of funny. But yeah, there you go. Please look out either the next few days. I will start a new playthrough with this patch right away, so that we can get some of that content going as well. I do appreciate you watching this, and please let me know what you think. Thank you again, and goodbye.